Good afternoon, everybody. So we have our learning target, like always. Remind me what a learning target is. It's an I can statement. What does it mean? Right, what you're going to be able to do by the end of this 45-minute period. So you, the student, exactly right. So I'm going to begin with the end in mind, just like I always do. So this is your ticket out the door. It's almost identical to last time. It adds one additional question. So the first question is, what are the three guiding questions that form the formative assessment model? What are the three questions? Where am I going? Where am I at? And how do I close the gap? That's it. The second question, that integrated matrix is the one with the pink 2 columns, the yellow 2 columns, and the blue 2 columns. That's the integrated matrix. You have a copy. Hold it up so everybody can see. It's on the back of that. That's the integrated matrix. So these questions come from the integrated matrix. The integrated matrix is formed through the intersection of blank along the x-axis. Blooms with what down the y-axis? Gardeners. Verbs from, with nouns from, and it promotes rigor, relevance, relationships, differentiation. That's correct. So that's that question. Which 2 columns are rigor? Evaluate and create is correct. The 5 criteria. So there's actually 6, but I cut it down to 5 on this assessment, so you can choose whichever 5 you like. So what are the 6 criteria for a clear learning target? I can, measurable, tied to the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, 80% mastery in core, completed in 1 block of time. That's 5. What's the other one? Written in language that students can understand, because this is for the students to know what you plan for them to learn. Our learning target is a what kind of statement? And then the last question is that guiding principle. That's back from day 2. What's the guiding principle for teaching and learning?
Teachers sweat in the planning, students sweat in the doing.
Correct. Teachers plan up front. The teachers do all we want the students to do as much work as possible once you get into class. Because the person doing the work in class is the person doing the learning. And you can write that any way you want to write that. Okay, that's it for the ticket out the door. Here's what we're doing today. We're going to fill out this chart. So we're going to go from one person's going to volunteer, because you all brought a standard unpacked, right? You all brought a standard that you unpacked into clear learning targets. That's what my email said. So you all brought a standard that you unpacked. So we're going to take that standard. We're going to unpack it into the learning targets using a no-show chart. So we're going to take the standard, unpack it into the learning targets using a no-show chart. And then we're going to take one of those learning targets and do lesson design, the criteria for success. So one person is going to volunteer to do that. I can tell you that an English language arts teacher did it in the first block in about 10 minutes. A math teacher did it in the second block in about 7 minutes. And a social studies teacher did it in third block in about 25 or 30 minutes. So you can determine who you want to do that. It took more time. So whoever wants to volunteer, if you're ready to go, it'd be cooler. And we can get through this much faster. Okay, so I'm going to go over I went over 2 examples of first group, and it was too much. So I'm going to just choose one example to go through with you. And then we're going to do this. So while we're going through this example, think about who would be the best person to volunteer to take their standard all the way through lesson design. And I'll help you. We'll all help you. Yes?
Brittany volunteered.
She did. Yes! All right. We have a volunteer already. This is great. And Brittany teaches what?
History.
Oh, perfect. Social studies. Excellent. Excellent. So here, I'm going to do the first period's example. Jennifer did our first period example. She's language arts. So here's the standard that she was working with. So Jennifer's standard was read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. Cite specific textual evidence when writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from text. That's her standard. If you want to, we can go one step at a time. You can write your standard up.
I have the standard number, so I'm going to get the language real quick.
Okay?
Sorry.
But tell me when you're ready. And it might be easier if we go one step at a time.
Okay.
But I'll wait, in fact. Let's do it. Let's do it that way. Let's wait. Can we play that music? What is it? Dun, 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 dun.
Hurry, you guys. It would be here from us because mine is
Okay,
already.
I'm getting there.
she's almost there.
There it is.
Okay, she's going to write the standard up. I'm going to give her a marker. You want me to hold something for you? You can move anything you need. And just put the standard right here. So she's choosing the standard that we're going to unpack. And we're going to do a think aloud, going all the way through the lesson design. You'll have an assignment today for the next time that we meet together. All of you will be doing one lesson design for one of the lessons between now and 2 weeks from now on Thursday. And I'll show you what it'll all have. So this is what yours will look like. So you'll have the standard, you'll have the learning target, and you'll have the criteria for success. And one of your criteria for success, one of your I still will statements, shows how the students will show that level of mastery. So it's just like the lesson plans I've been doing for you, but adding the standard because I don't have a standard to work with. So you'll be adding the standard to this. So yours will be just like this. So that'll be part of your, I'll send you an email, but that's the homework that you'll have for tonight, for 2 weeks from now. Okay, she's writing the standard. Is that it?
I don't like this anymore. I'm feeling pressured.
Don't feel pressured. Nobody is even watching. We can help you though. What do you need?
Now that I'm up here, I'm like, is that the right standard?
That's fine. Any standard will do.
Okay, well.
Just keep going.
We wouldn't know, so it's really fun. There's not another history teacher here, Brittany.
Exactly. Nobody's going to know. I'm masked. I'm masked. So I can't help with that. You are the expert for sure.
American political thought.
You can see how broad that language is, right? It's big. It's certainly bigger than a day. Okay, stay there. So that's her learning target, and we need to unpack that. The first question that Jennifer asked is, how long will it take my students to complete this standard? And she determined that it would take 2 days. So how many learning targets does she have? 2, yeah, one learning target, one unique learning target for each, one I can statement for each learning target. So her first learning target is, I can make inferences from chapter 1 of, and she states specifically what text she's using, the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. So that chapter she can read, and she's reading that thing, if you look down further, she can read, her students can read that text in 25 minutes. But we'll go to that later. So that's her learning target for the first day. And then, how will the students show that they know this? They will use the quote from the chapter that supports her thoughts on this. So that's how the students are going to show that they can make inferences from the chapter. Okay, so for you, what's the first day going to look like? It's an I can statement. What will the first day of learning look like to move towards accomplishing this standard?
Okay.
And you put it over here.
Huh?
So it's an I can statement right here.
Okay. I can understand.
Oh, no, understand happens in your brain. Remember, it has to be a measurable verb.
I can.
You can identify, you can explain, you can.
Explain. I can explain why considered weak.
Okay, so that's her first learning target. So how many days do you think it will take for your students to accomplish this whole standard?
About 3.
Okay, so she could create 3 learning targets. Should we do that? Will it be easy for you to do? Can you do that fast?
Yeah.
We're only going to go from here to here with 1, but it'd be cool if they could see all 3.
Oh,
So put a line like this
Okay.
and do the second one. So what's the next thing? She's moving towards accomplishing that whole standard. So she's unpacking it further. The next learning target.
No, you gotta put a note.
Can't, you can't use, yeah, it has to be measurable.
I can
Make, identify.
identify, thank you. Why the anti-federalists did not want a strong federal government.
Okay, and then day 3. Put a line in day 3.
I can identify examples of the Bill of Rights in action.
Excellent. Okay, so now we're just going to play with one of them for the rest of the time. So which one do you want to play with? Day 1, 2, or 3?
We're gonna do day 2.
Play. Okay. So how will the students show? How will the students show you that they can identify why the anti-federalists did not want a strong federal government? How will they show you?
Okay.
And that will be an I will statement. The student will.
Okay.
I will.
Student will analyze
Excellent. That's measurable.
Cabinet Battle 1 from Hamilton and use evidence
Very good. Excellent.
to write a paragraph
Whew. Writing, so that's kicking it up into the rigor area.
on why the anti-federalists were against the ban.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, any questions so far? So she thinks her students can finish this whole standard in 3 days. She's defined all 3 days. We could define the show for all of them, but in the name of time, we're only going to play with one of these learning targets. They're going to show this, they're going to show her that they can master it using this strategy. This will become one of her criteria for success. The one that says, how will I know the level of mastery? This will go there in her lesson design later. So any questions so far where we're at? We've unpacked the standard into 3 learning targets. She's going to play with this one. Any questions? Okay, so now copy this here. That I can statement here. So now we're moving into unpacking the learning target into those 0 to 15-minute chunks. Okay, so here are some methods that we've learned together in our 4 sessions, this is our 5th one, to unpack learning targets. And it fell on the floor. See if it'll stick. Okay, so someone remind me what cooperative learning structures are. What are they?
Grouping students together.
Yeah, grouping students together, 2, 3s, or 4s, right? And there's 5 elements if we put in place, you can get a high effect size, 1.4, which is a tremendous effect size on student growth. But you have to have those 5 elements in place in order to accomplish that. So it's a little bit of whole group, it's a little bit of pairs or 3s or 4s, or a little bit of independent. So that's cooperative learning structure. Remind me what depth of knowledge is? Say again? It's one of the charts. Which one? We've played with it already today. Yep, you're holding it. Depths of knowledge. Not that one. If you hold the right one, I'll tell you yes. She's got it in her hand, but it's upside down. There it is. So remember, it's a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of application of that knowledge, a little bit of rigor. That's depth of knowledge. A little bit of knowledge-based information, a little bit of application of that knowledge, a little bit of rigor. That's another way to break down that learning target. Remind me what gradual release of responsibility model is?
Turning over more and more.
It's something do. Yeah, gradual release. Yep, gradual release responsibility model is I do, that's teacher voice only. We do could be we, the teacher, working with the students, or we do could also be we, the students, working together in our small groups. So it could be a we do just students together, or it could be a we do teacher and student. And then you do is whose voice? It's student voice only, right? We want to know what the student knows independently with no extra help, no help from anybody. Okay, any questions on gradual release? So now we're going to go back up here. The first I will statement, what's the first thing you're going to do? And then think about the verb.
Me or the kids?
It's I as a student.
Okay.
So I will. What's the first thing the students are going to do? Thinking about depths of knowledge. Are you going to do something in the knowledge-based information at first? And they choose a verb.
The differences?
Chart. Good. Cool. That might already be an application. I bet. Look on the verbs in the yellow column. I bet you we're right to application. And it doesn't have to be in any special order. Isn't charting application, right? I would say so. Okay, so I will chart the differences between federals, and I think it's moving right, put a parentheses here. So I think that's application. Does everyone agree with me? So put apply. Do you want that to be an I do, a we do, or a you do activity?
It can be we do.
Okay, so put we do, or just put we. Just keep on going. You could keep it all in the same thing with a comma. And then how many minutes do you think that'll take? Okay, so that's the process. You want to integrate these processes within your lesson design. You want to explain those processes, and then how many minutes is it going to take? So she used the verb chart. The chart's an application verb. It's a we do activity, and it can be either we do teacher with student or student with student, and she's going to make that determination while she's teaching. It's a formative process. It depends on where the students are. And then she's decided it's going to be 15 minutes in length. Okay, now another I will. What's the next thing they're going to do to accomplish this learning target? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm lost.
Okay.
I'm on the slow train today, I guess. So where are you picking that chart is an application? Because I'm seeing mapping and matching.
These verbs are not inclusive. There's all kinds of other verbs.
But okay, I get that they can't put every word in the English language on this piece of
Correct.
paper. I'm with you.
Yep.
But I put charting with mapping and with matching. But you're telling me that charting is going with discovering and producing.
Yeah, I think before students can chart something, they have to have some knowledge, information, and they're applying that knowledge to be able to chart. That's my feeling. What's your feeling?
So you're putting that application rather than understanding.
They're getting
Right.
So they're picking the knowledge apart and charting it.
Yeah, so that would be application.
I guess, isn't the charting where I give them the new stuff? Like the knowledge is where I give them the new stuff?
Yeah,
And then, but the application to me, I think she's right, wouldn't application be more like, charting's just kind of reiterating what I already said.
Okay, so
Like,
you think
that's
it's
like taking notes.
so you
I
think
wouldn't
this
say
is-
it's applying it, I'd say it's still taking notes.
okay, so then put it as the knowledge-based information.
Okay.
So it's however she's,
I would put it at understanding it.
so that would be knowledge, understanding is knowledge.
In my way of charting, but I may be doing charting differently than you do
Yeah,
it.
and,
In science, I'm doing charting as an understanding, not an application. An interpretation of a chart or a graph
okay,
is an application in my brain.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking, because if you went straight to an application level for a chart, I'm like, whoa, I'm doing charting way different then. Or I'm thinking of, because I'm reiterating things I've already done, and I'm just checking for understanding.
right. And we all do,
And that's what I'm asking.
and we all do use charts differently. And she could have used the chart at the application level if they already had the knowledge-based information. But she's just shared with us that they don't.
It's kind of like scaffolding, like I'm gonna kind of guide them through the Nearpod, but then like when they do the chart, it's more like they're reiterating the information they just learned to break it down into 2 columns, just so that
Right.
they can look at those 2 columns and do the next.
You don't have to keep going, or she'll keep talking. That's just how she works.
Okay.
They're gonna use it to help them analyze the song.
But at this point,
No,
when you're helping them build the chart, are you using it on the application level, or are you using it on the understanding level?
understanding it.
Okay, and she changed it. And she's changed it, so she's changed it to knowledge-based information.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand here, because
right.
if we're just starting out with this standard,
Right.
I'm like, how are we jumping straight into an application if we're just starting out with this standard and this is new learning?
Well, she could have just let you know. So the day before, she could have done all the knowledge-based information, and you can jump right into application as your first.
I do have a question about
Okay.
that, because I thought this was to show us the lesson planning process. It's
It is.
not.
It is a lesson planning
Because
process.
the lesson planning process, I thought it was like me first, like me up there, not the kids.
Right.
Telling them, like giving them the information,
Right.
then the kids.
So-
So why are we starting with I will, like that's the kids? That's why I said, I thought the I will was me.
The I will is always the student, and here's where you tell whether you're doing we, do. Are you watching? Here's where you do the we do, you do, I do. The I will is always the student.
So who's?
What's the
is
student
that-
going to be doing?
Okay, so that's.
And here's where
always-
you tell whether you're doing those strategies in the parentheses. You're now telling me that charting is a knowledge-based.
So shouldn't we put the first one, I will listen to the teacher?
Again, this is your lesson, it's not my lesson.
I know, but I didn't.
So you can do that if you want to. Again, we read an article, remember, on gradual release responsibility model. What did that article tell us? Do we have to do I do first all the time? No, it said we can do it in any order we want to. This is your lesson, it's not my lesson. So you can create it any way you like, and I'll be happy. And it'll be your lesson, not my lesson. And charting, I guarantee I can do a chart on the application level. And I could do a chart on the knowledge-based level. I was going with the professional, but she said at first that it was an application, but she changed her mind, and it's now on knowledge-based information. So what content's in that Nearpod?
That introduces differences between the 2 parties.
Okay? Okay, now in parentheses.
Nearpod's always a we do though, because there is still activities for the kids.
Okay, so in parentheses, tell me whether it's knowledge-based or application and knowledge.
knowledge, it's just-
Okay, so start your parentheses with knowledge,
I mean, okay,
and then you told me it's going to be a we do, so put we do second.
all right.
Put we do second.
I did, it's right here.
Okay, and then how many minutes?
30.
Okay, so we're up to 45 minutes. Remember, how many minutes should ideally each of your chunks of time be? How many? Your chunks of time
15, 15.
is 0 to 15. So your chunks of time should be broken down into 0 to 15-minute chunks.
I thought it was 30 and then, okay.
No, it's everything's 0 to 15.
Depending on the nearpod, so like some
Change
of,
it to 50.
I was gonna say, mine, it's broken up into different activities, so it's not like just one thing. So like it would start with like a bell ringer and then they move to the next thing. So it just really depends on the nearpod itself.
Yeah, like my editing is gonna be on mine too.
So sometimes you have to stop your Nearpod, talk about it
Right. And
before you move on.
Right.
So and that's still a separate activity.
Right,
Once you
they're
stop and
different
talk,
chunks of
is a separate strategy activity. But each strategy activity should be 0 to 15 minutes away.
Right.
Otherwise, you will lose student attention.
right.
Okay? So we're up to how many minutes? How many have we done?
I changed it to 15.
So 2:15. Okay, what's the next thing they're going to do? So far we've engaged in a Nearpod and we've charted the differences. What's the next thing?
I will apply my knowledge by interpreting cabinet battle #1 from Hamilton.
Okay, so and as you start playing with this, you'll be adding a whole bunch of words you don't need to. So usually it goes from will to the verb that you're going to be using. So I will interpret cabinet battle #1 from Hamilton
Isn't
because
apply a verb too?
because we're going to identify that we're going to be applying my knowledge in the parentheses. So now in parentheses put, you said it's application, so it's apply. So here's where she's identifying this application. She doesn't have to write it here because it's here. Is it going to be a you do, we do, or I do activity?
Read it.
Okay, and how many minutes?
15.
Okay, so she can get rid of apply my knowledge, cross that out, and put interpret instead of interpreting. So is doing it as concisely as you possibly can and keeping it as simple as you possibly can. After the I can, the word can should be a verb. After the word will should be a verb. Both I can and I will are the student. It's not the teacher. Okay, what's the next thing they're going to do? And we're moving towards being able to do this at the end, and that's your final activity. And we need 90 minutes altogether, right? And we need 90 minutes. How long do you think this would take you to unpack a lesson? How long do you think it will take you to do one lesson? How much? How long?
We're gonna go into 40. What's 40 plus
40 plus what?
40 plus 15?
55?
55? Okay, so I got 55 minutes right there. What's 90 minus 55?
35.
Okay. Darn it.
And you probably need 15 here, right? So you probably need 15 here. So you,
I put 20 there.
okay. So,
I had to put 20 there.
yep, and you can adjust it. As you're lesson planning, you adjust it all the time, don't you? And even if as you're teaching, you adjust it all the time based on formative assessment data. Exactly. That didn't work. Exactly.
Short essay on why the anti-federalists were opposed to a national bank.
Okay, they're writing, and it's an original something, straight from their heads. They're not copying it. So at what level is that?
Creating.
Yeah, it's at the rigor level. So in parentheses, rigor. Is that an I do, you do, or we do?
I do.
I do is a teacher voice only.
No, you do.
You do, student voice only. And how many minutes? Okay.
What's 60 plus
What's that?
Thank you.
And now just do your ticket out the door, your last activity.
20, 40, 60. Okay, cool. Thank you. I will,
You have it written right there.
what?
Isn't this your last one? Isn't this how the students are going to show you?
They just did that. That's right
Okay.
here.
Oh, so you're,
I will give a modern day example of something.
oh, cool. Good.
An anti-federalist should be opposed to.
Yep. Okay, in parentheses, identify whether it's knowledge, application, or rigor. And then I do, you do, we do. Okay, very good, thank you. Any questions on the process? It'll be messy at first because it's something new for you. But I can tell you I can do a lesson in this like this in about 5 minutes. But I've been doing it for a long time. Because the format's the same. Once you get used to the format, you're just repeating. You're just repeating. And again, you don't have to do the I do, we do, you do in order. And again, these verbs are not set in stone. It depends on how you use them. And I'll give you an example. I was in an AP biology class, and the principal was supposed to be in a comprehensive needs assessment. The teacher was supposed to take us to a class where rigor was being used the best in the school. So I was in AP biology, and the teacher had this worksheet and had cutout pieces of paper, and you could tell exactly where the cutout piece of paper would go out on this biosphere. And so the students were coloring the pieces of paper and then pasting it onto the biosphere. And the teacher said that they were creating a biosphere. So do you think that was creating a biosphere? No, everything matched up perfectly. The students knew exactly where to put everything. So they're really just cutting and pasting. It was kind of like a kindergarten assignment. So even though the teacher used the word create, that certainly was not create, right? So it's not just the fact that you plan with that verb, it's what does it look like in the classroom? And you asked some very good questions that help guide her towards what am I really meaning by charting. It helped, right? It helped. And that's the value of a PLC. More people thinking about a lesson together, right? You did a good job. Thank you. All right, any questions about your assignment that you have? You'll be taking one of your lessons. I'm sure you'll be doing at least 10 before we meet again. Take one of those lessons and create a lesson design very similar to what I've been doing, but add the standard to the top. That's the only real difference. Okay, are we ready? As soon as you are ready for your ticket out the door, clear off your desk, and I'll give you your ticket out the door, and we're done. Good job again. So we ended up with 2 social studies, 1 English, 1 math.